Welcome, Spartans, to Halo TV Plus, part of Evolved, your home for Halo. I'm your host, Oran, and on Halo TV Plus, my guests and I recap Halo's universe's TV show, Halo the Series, and discuss its contents and unique canon within the Silver Timeline. Joining me tonight for Season 2 of Episode 1, Sanctuary, is Ian. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Hey, Oran, nice to be on here finally.
Yes, it's a long time coming. We were finally able to get the schedules together and do a show together for the TV show. This is exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm excited for the show, and I'm excited for I'm excited for the Halo show Season 2. So,
just kind of generally, without going too long into it, what were your general thoughts of Season 1 since we didn't have you last year?
Yeah, so I've mentioned it on other podcasts to very quickly plug our other shows on our Patreon exclusive podcast. I have mentioned this show specifically several times. I didn't like it, I'll be honest. There are parts of it I really enjoyed that I think overall the community didn't like. But the basically anything, most of the second half, particularly like the last, 3-ish episodes, that kind of felt like it kind of went off the rails there a bit. I didn't like the ending. It was just it got a little bit silly. I did like the stuff with Chief and Halsey at the beginning, kind of him exploring his background. I thought that was actually done pretty well. It was a little slow, I know, for a lot of people, but I thought it was done pretty well despite that. But then, of course, the whole thing with was it McKee or what's her name?
McKee.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah, McKee and Quan are kind of the two hot topics.
Yeah, the Quan thing I'm less annoyed with. It was just sort of. It didn't feel like it went anywhere, but the McKee part, I felt I was kind of irritated about. I was holding out hope that they would maybe come up with something that made sense, and yeah, it just felt kind of weird. It didn't seem like it really fit very well into Halo in general.
Yeah, it kind of was a bit odd in some aspects, definitely the romantic element to it. I think that really didn't sit well with most of the community. I kind of liked a little bit with what they were doing, and I've probably said it a dozen times on this show, but I guess we'll learn and see what we think about Episode 1. We're going to watch it here in a minute. I think it was a very strong first episode and for the new season. And I also want to preface that Ian and I have not seen the second episode. I know, and we both know it was a double episode premiere, but we felt it would be more appropriate to discuss this show without any knowledge of the second episode. So just wanted to say that from the get-go. But before we get closer and dive into it, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping for us. As you know, or if you don't know, if you're new to Halo TV Plus, welcome. This is a commentary episode because each week for every episode of the TV show, Halo TV Plus publishes a commentary episode and an analysis episode to accompany the released episode of the week. So this one is the commentary episode where Ian and I will watch Sanctuary and discuss the events as they unfold on screen. We encourage you to watch along with us. If you haven't already watched the episode, we recommend that you watch it before listening to our commentary, so then you can watch along with us after seeing it, because we spoil things kind of while they happen, maybe right before they happen, or maybe we'll talk about something and then the next scene will kind of just start and it'll be maybe a little bit delayed kind of getting onto that. So it is very helpful to know a little bit or kind of what is going on in the context of the scene before you listen to us kind of discuss it on as it's going on. But once we're ready to jump in, you can go ahead and queue up the episode if you're listening. And while I finish with the housekeeping, we're going to start right on 000, right before we get the fade in. It'll be after the Paramount Plus sort of logo animation. And I do also want to note that we are going to have ads. I don't have ads, but Ian does. So So the length of the recording will run as long as you have ads. So if you're a Paramount Plus subscriber that does not have ads, you will have to pause your video during the longer breaks and scene breaks, because we're going to be talking as if a commercial break is going on. And if you are a subscriber that has commercials and ads, then you don't need to do anything. Otherwise, it'd be reverse if we record an episode where both of us don't have ads. So it's a little case by case. Halo TV Plus is also just part of Evolved, which hosts a bunch of other Halo podcasts like Podcast Evolved, HCS Pro Talk, Mission Debrief, Builds with Blocks, and Halo Book Club. You can learn more about each of those shows on evolvedhalo.com. Also, don't forget to check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and TikTok. Evolved hosts another show that Ian was mentioning, I Would Have Been Your Podcast, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast show. If you're not subscribed to Patreon, you can learn more at patreon.com/HaloEvolved. Patrons receive a variety of exclusive rewards, such as early episodes, access to our original 18-song soundtrack, unique swag, access to our private Discord channel with the hosts, and more. I want to shout out to all of our subscribers for making the show possible, and shout out to you, Ian, for maintaining that for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thanks to everyone. I know I say this on I Would Have Been Your Podcast every episode. I know we mention that in every other episode as well of the multitude of Halo podcasts that we have now. But yeah, seriously, thank you. The support really does mean everything, and it is the reason why Oran and I are here, and the reason why I do the podcast over on the Patreon. Yeah, it's amazing that you guys are sticking around with us, and I really appreciate all the support, and hopefully we can get you the content that you want.
Yes, couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much. All right, so getting into Sanctuary, we don't really have what happened last week because this is the first episode of season 2, but if you didn't listen to our previous episode that David and I did, we did talk about season 1 in kind of a retrospective manner. It was the first time that we've watched it since the show aired back in 2022. And the state of the universe is what I'll put it is kind of leading into this episode to kind of refresh you, is Chief and Silver Team are en route back to Reach with the artifact, the keystone that the Covenant took and brought to their kind of sacred world where that huge fight happened. Chief is being controlled by Cortana. He let her take over his body, and Kai had her arm blown off. She's in critical condition, and Chief is effectively comatose, and Cortana is controlling his body. You have Halsey, who's on the run. She escaped with a Flash clone. You have Parangoski, Keyes, and Dr. Keyes, Miranda, all at FleetCom. It's been kind of destroyed. They have to kind of pick up the pieces and rebuild a little bit. And McKee was presumed dead. She was definitely injured. We don't really know kind of what happened to her. And Quan went back to Madrigal, and she kind of had this newfound purpose with after her events with Soren to protect this well/portal/monitor that we don't really know a whole lot about. And Soren went back home to his family on the rubble. And so that's kind of where our key players kind of left us at the end of season 1. And if you're ready, Ian, we can get to a quick little detail. So about Sanctuary, this is the season premiere. The synopsis is: a deadly evacuation mission signals a shift in Master Chief's war with the Covenant. On Reach, a new regime takes the reins of FleetCom. John senses a looming threat close to home. The director is Debs Patterson, has a runtime of 57 minutes, 34 seconds, and it originally aired on February 8th, 2024. So, Ian, are you ready to get a watch in?
I am ready. So
I will count us down if you want to kind of, I guess, count in your head with me, and we'll sync it all up. But I'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. And listeners at home, you will press play when we say play as well. So then we can sync it up as best as we can, probably within a couple of a second or so. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. All right.
There he is.
There he is. Master Cheeks is almost back. We get his abs.
Yes.
But I wanted to say right off the bat that I'm really glad they started with this scene, because it just answers really the first question everyone has, whereas Cortana took control over Chief. So what's going to happen at the beginning of the next season? So just right out of the gate, they have the surgery that I presume happens very shortly after he returns back from Reach. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we'll learn more that maybe it was Cortana still had control of him before, or kind of just like doing a mission or something when he came back. But I'm glad they just kind of got it out of the way, because this does take place 6 months after the events of Transcendence, the 9th episode.
Does it?
And yeah, I think it's about 6 months, because they say 6 months a few times during this episode, like between Ackerson and I think Vanek even coming up here right now. He says something like, we've had 3 bogus civilian escort missions in 6 months. He's like about to say it. So I think it's been a very loose 6 month period. Yeah, he says 3 civilian evacs in 6 months. So, yeah.
Okay.
Ian, anything you want to mention? Like, I think it's interesting, this kind of new approach they're taking with Silver Team, because already in this first sort of introduction with everybody, we get a little bit more character than I think we've really gotten out of the 4 of them last season.
Yeah.
Namely because they removed their pellets. What are kind of your thoughts on that whole sort of emotional suppressant versus, Spartans kind of having a little bit more emotion than typically expressed than core canon?
I mean, I'm fine with them having a little bit more emotion, to be honest. It's hard for me to kind of tell the difference. We'll see it in, I think, the next scene or next couple scenes. You'll see Silver Team versus, Cobalt.
Yep.
The one team has their pellets out and the other team doesn't. And it's really hard for me to tell which one's more emotional. They kind of seem to be, bouncing off each other the same way. So it's like, on one hand, it's, I guess it's good that they're expressing more emotion, but on the other hand, it seems like almost a moot point in the story that just, what I don't know if they're really going to get into it more in this season than they did last season. Because, yeah, like I said, their emotions don't seem to be all that different than any other Spartan team. Yeah,
that's a good point. And something else that's like kind of been in the back of my mind is that you've always kind of had this Spartan banter. Like, I mean, I think I might have seen it more so with the Spartan 4s, because you kind of get a little bit more of their personality in Halo 4 with the Infinity and Spartan Ops and things, and you kind of have this little more like mutual respect, but kind of typical, U.S. military sort of like top dog sort of banter back and forth. And it seems that they're, trying to show that a little bit more this time around. I mean, even showing the other Spartans, I think, is pretty interesting and a change from last season. But yeah, you bring up a good point. It is, a little mute, or at least just based off this first episode. Kind of see how it comes together.
Yeah, I'm curious if they ever even get back to that or not, or they just say, oh, everyone has their pellets out, and they just kind of move on with it. Because that was sort of a story point of last season, and I don't know that it needs to be revisited. So, what I am curious about, this scene really interested me, though, because there's a lot of different scenes particularly from the novels. I'm thinking, not Contact Harvest, Cole Protocol comes to mind towards the beginning, and I think that was Madrigal too in the Cole Protocol, but this isn't Madrigal, but it was last season. About Oni and the UNSC coming in and trying to do an evac, and the insurrectionists, or at least the insurrection adjacent colonists, really don't want to listen to the UNSC. I did get a lot of that kind of vibes from it, and in addition, I also get a lot of vibes from the opening, I think it's the opening scene of Fall of Reach novel. Different planet in the canon, but that book opened up in a similar situation where, well, it was Blue Team in that, but Blue Team's there to, I think they were doing an evac mission, right? And then kind of ends in the same way, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think this sort of general sort of interaction between non-UNSC controlled colonies and the UNSC, I think has kind of been kind of ongoing motif throughout the Halo novels, because I feel like it also was in Last Light and kind of those other Blue Team novels where different Covenant forces invaded other planets, and it's like, well, the UNSC has to kind of go around and stop the Covenant where they attack, and whether the civilians like it or not, and they want nothing or anything to do with the UNSC, they just kind of have to live with it to a degree.
Yeah. And as a quick aside here, this scene in particular with him, Chief, interacting with I don't know her name, but that, I guess, the leader of that group. I like that scene because I was expecting him to say something and take off his helmet there to show his humanity, and he didn't. He did his very robotic, just kind of silent Chief with the helmet on. I did not expect that out of the show, and I think that is a change from what we would have seen last season for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm glad too, because I was watching this whole sequence, and I'm like, Chief's in combat, he needs to have his helmet on. Like that's kind of just my rule,
right?
Like I've accepted him to not have his helmet on, but like he just has to have, like, he's a smart guy, and like, you know, he's a battle oriented, results oriented soldier. Like he needs to just have his helmet on while he's fighting. Like he can still get whatever emotions he needs to, but like he's in hostile territory right now.
Exactly.
The Covenant are orbiting above. I mean, they don't know that they're on the ground yet, but like, you know, he's here to work. Like he needs to work. So yeah, I'm glad we waited for him to, you know, once they were on the Condor, like, and we'll get that in a second, but like when he takes it off, then I was like audibly like, all right, I'll accept it. Like, because it's like, okay, they're quote unquote safe now. You know, minus like a glassing beam hitting them, but still, like,
yeah, for sure. Well, I guess we'll get through it as we'll see him as we get through it, all the helmet removals, but I don't remember any gratuitous helmet removals in this episode. I thought they were all reasonable, the times where you saw Chief's face.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree. I mean, unless something sort of pops up.
Yeah.
So this scene, the part that irks me here, just to kind of still be a little bit on the purist, you know, Halo lore purist kind of a thing, is the idea of the motion tractor, because like he has one because we saw it in the first season, and he can't see anything, and so it's like, well, you should see that there's friendlies, no? Like unless there's some sort of magnetic anomaly that happened with the radar or with the satellite relay, like knock that out too. I was just like, okay, well, maybe you would not see the friendlies if they were far enough away, but like when you can't see any of the elites running around,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's true. That's a good point. I didn't really think about that. I guess for me, the radar is sort of it's canon, but only because you need it in the game to play the game. It's part of the gameplay more so than the lore. So
yeah, unless there's a thing where there's no real radar for the for cloaked elites, that I'm actually not too sure about. Like in Halo 2, and
that's true. I think technically you're right. I think technically you are right. You wouldn't see them on the tracker anyways. So, but I don't know. That didn't. Honestly, I didn't even pop into my head. That's not a concern for me. It's kind of the same way with the helmet though. Like it's one of those things where I know people complain, fans complain about this stuff, but you know, it doesn't bother me that much. That's such a minor detail.
Yeah, it is minor. It's just like I just remember thinking about it while watching it. Just like,
yeah,
we can't see anything, and it's like, well, dude, you have a radar. Like,
this is a good scene.
Shouldn't matter.
I really.
But yeah, this whole sequence I think is really great. I don't really know what the elites are doing, pulling them away. Kind of like,
yeah, you're right. Now that I'm watching, I the first time. Oh, well, I guess they're cloaked. They're cloaked elites, right?
Yeah, but like I feel like the cloaked elites should just slice them with the sword, but I don't know what's like pulling them away. But I guess that's a minor detail I'll overlook.
Yeah, it's not.
It gives you the suspense, and so it's like, oh, what is it?
I did get a lot of Forward Unto Dawn vibes here, where like the troopers all seem way undersized for their armor.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because Chief is so big, or the costume department has too, like, I don't know, the helmets just seem like weirdly large on them.
I don't know. I do like, and they even get this in the games to where, the Chief uses all the weapons and they're just huge guns whenever regular Marines use them, because when Chief used them, they look quote unquote more normal. And so like Perez fires the shotgun and like her whole body just flies back.
It's funny. It's not really very practical, but it is, at least it's consistent in that respect. What do you think of like the CG here with the animation? This didn't bother me nearly as much as like say like I think it was the final episode of the first season.
The final episode. Yeah,
but
I would agree.
Finish
your thought.
I was just gonna say, like, I still felt like there's some issues here where I watch this and I see a little bit of like that kind of claymation sort of motion where just something feels super weird about it. But there's not as much animation here because you just have the one character that, one at a time. So, or maybe two if you count Chief.
Yeah, I think it's probably a mixture because it's all one shot and it's handheld, and so like they do these quick, fast things. So like in terms of the visual effects tracking, like there's a lot more sort of work that has to go into that as opposed to either a straight up static shot or just a left camera movement shot. So I think the kind of claymation sort of style, I think is kind of just maybe becoming a little more apparent.
Yeah.
With the just the type of camera work that the visual effects has to kind of match. And, I guess there's only so much you can do depending upon your budget of time and,
right.
Viz effects artists. But I mean, I didn't really mind it. I mean, it's fairly blurry and there's not a lot of light because of all the fog. And so I kind of didn't really need it to be super clear.
No, I thought it was fine.
Visually impressive. Like I kind of got its point across, and I would just hope that like the scenes where we actually get like talking elites and like those kind of character moments, I think there should be more fidelity in those visual effects, or even practical if they do it kind of like, when the Sangheili, when the Sanshayun and the Prophets spoke last season, if there's any more of that this season.
Like you said, I think it's a budget constraint thing that they just only have so much budget to put into VFX, but which is good. I liked how they did it here, where it's a little bit, like you said, it's a little grainy because of the fog, and it's you're not animating too many characters at once, so it seems fine. But like if they try to go back to one of those huge battles again, I think we'll end up seeing the same issues where it's just there's too much being animated at once and it just looks weird.
Yeah, maybe so.
There's, I assume, McKee, right?
I assume that is McKee, and I think it's likely McKee telling them to not attack him for some reason.
Yeah, so
but I don't know why she's on the surface.
Yeah, I was sort of hoping
unless they're looking for an artifact.
They must be.
Like Chief kind of mentions it to Ackerson later, like, why were they there before the glassing? And it's like, well, typically in the novels, they always go down to the surface to look for an artifact, and then when they don't find it or it doesn't work, they're like, well, we don't need this planet anymore, and so they just glass it on the way out.
Yeah, I was hoping we would just be done with her, to be honest, but I guess we'll see where it goes. This part of the scene is amazing, by the way. This VFX is awesome.
Yeah. No, this is done really well. And again, I think the kind of haze and fog that I guess that's just kind of natural to that planet, I think also kind of helps. So then when you start getting the molten lava-ish type of burning and like the ash effects, it's this is done really well.
Well, they clearly have a decent VFX budget. It's just that like when you start to try to animate faces, particularly like, well, faces and like just body movement in general, but then specifically when you're doing it with an alien face, I think it just requires a lot more effort to make it look quote unquote natural. Whereas you're doing something with fire and beams of light and explosions, that's probably a lot easier to do and make it look real. So they did I think they did a good job with this for sure. I'm just hopeful that we can not see kind of the weirdness that we saw last season with the big, like what was it? Was it brutes or elite? It was elites.
I think it was the elites. I thought the brutes were mostly fine, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really liked episode 5, in terms of that episode's visual effects and combat. I think that had a nice balance of practicality and visual effects and the way that the camera, and they hid things and quick cuts. But I don't know if it was time and maybe the visual effects were rushed for Transcendence, but that one just seemed to be a little bit more mucky.
Yeah, this is the scene that reminded me of Jericho 7 when they were leaving. I think it's the end of the first scene of the Fall of Reach book, where they're I can't remember if they're on a Pelican or what they were on, but they were kind of looking down on the planet it's burning, and blue team in the book was leaving. I got that feeling of that from that scene right there. And I guess we changed the music and the intro.
Yes. Yeah, well, the intro I thought was the same, because I think this beginning part is, and I was like, really? Right. They didn't change any of it? But then they cut, and I think you see his eye right here.
Yeah. I'd have to go back. This was different. I know this part's right here different. I don't remember.
Yeah, that part's definitely, it gave me Master Chief Collection vibes with the gold visor, and then we see the halo. So I was like, yeah, this is definitely new. But the music is great.
Music, yes.
I mean, it sounds just like a more
halo-y.
Yeah, I was going to try to say devoted, or just like a more faithful. That's it, a more faithful interpretation of the original soundtrack.
Yeah.
So
I'm in a commercial.
Oh, you're in a commercial.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll just pause it on Master Chief's neck in the shower.
All right. I'll let you know when I'm back. I'm on commercial 2 right now.
How long are the commercials? Like 30 seconds?
First one was 15 seconds. This one's 30.
So 45 total?
Well, it doesn't tell me how many. Oh, no, 53 seconds left. So I guess I have one more after this. Or maybe two more.
So probably a minute then.
I think so. Yeah, it looks like a minute and a half. I'm halfway through the wheel, so.
Oh, goodness. So one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the that kind of village leader at the end there, like as she's walking to her death and Chief is carrying Perez to the Condor.
Yeah.
She says, where is it on my notes? Find your faith, Spartan. I've seen your death. It comes soon.
Yeah, that was interesting foreshadowing of something.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's, I doubt that he actually dies, but often when kind of characters get these types of sort of character, foreshadowing and overall, like, come to, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but just like these types of interactions, like there's ultimately like a choice that the character has to go through that like has a big sacrifice. So I'm just kind of curious what that might be later down the line, if like John has to sacrifice like himself or something for like one of his other Spartans, or for Cortana, or maybe for a Covenant character. I think it's. Oh, you're back. All right. Whereabouts is he still showering?
You just finished a shower. Let me know when you're done with that.
Yeah, the shower is still going, still wet and steamy. That's a good. All right, now we're back. Welcome back. I know it was difficult. So what I find interesting is that Captain Keyes is now an admiral.
Oh, I missed that.
It says admiral. We need to do a debrief, and I don't remember him being an admiral in season 1. So I wonder if he was promoted between the two. Also, we lost Madrigal, so Madrigal's glassed.
Yeah,
which I think I like chuckled when I heard that. I was like, really? Like,
I don't remember what happened at the end of season 1 though with it.
I mean, it was not glassed, like, and Quan was on it, like.
Oh,
Quan,
that's okay. That's right. That was the
was like episode. What was that? Episode 8? No, episode 7. Right. 5, 6. Yeah, 7. I think Inheritance, and it's Quan like goes to the Mystic's hut and like smokes some stuff and has hallucinations and fights Chief and dies a few times, and then learns about the portal that leads somewhere with a Halo monitor or an installation monitor, and then she's like, I'm staying here in Magical to protect it. And we're like, all right, you go, girl. See you later.
Yeah.
So between then and now, Madrigal's been glassed, and Quan gets off the planet somehow, and I guess we'll learn that in the next few episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a bold choice because the showrunners and everybody seem to be giving Madrigal some sort of importance. And so I'm just kind of I think it's interesting, and I'm interested to see where they take that. Because, as bad as Quan's story was, like, you can't really just write her out unless you kill her off. So, like, I just want them to have a more effective storytelling thing with her. And, I mean, we get a little bit of a tease, but they don't really give us anything at the end of this episode to really justify the way they handled her last season.
Yeah, that was another story thread I was kind of hoping we just said we just dropped, but I guess we're continuing it for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, here is our introduction to James Ackerson.
Yeah, he's a lot younger than the Ackerson from, I guess, OG canon.
I guess so. I mean, this guy's in his early 40s. Maybe Ackerson was in his 50s or late 40s.
I don't know. Does he? I guess he looks. I don't know. I guess he just looks younger in this. Maybe it's just the actor.
He does look good, but I think I read online that he's like 42 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like a Reddit conversation I think that kind of had the same point, and I mean, it doesn't. I mean, they do say that he's had combat experience, but I don't get the sense that he's a colonel.
Oh, that's right. He's a colonel in the lore.
So, like, I kind of get the sense that he was some sort of low-level officer, had command of his own troops, did really well, and then got transferred into Oni, and then now he's doing the Spartan program, is kind of how they're writing him in this. And I think his service record is a little bit of the same in core canon, because he does go behind a desk for a little while, and then Cortana changes his papers, so then he actually goes back into combat, kind of
right,
maybe half in the sort of thinking that he might die in combat, because
well, that was the implication. Yeah, that was the implication.
Merciless. That's exactly. But I mean, I liked him. I thought that was a decent introduction, and we get more of them throughout the episode. I am a fan of the actor and how he's being portrayed. I want to see more of him. I feel like there's definitely a lot more sort of like snivy and sneaky Ackerson to be shown. I don't think we've really gotten all of it, but I think of what we have seen is a good, I think, introduction.
Yeah, it was a good setup for an Oni higher up for sure. He seems very he fits the role. I think he's kind of he's in command. He's a little bit overconfident and he's extremely secretive. He definitely fits the role. And I just looked up the actor Joseph Morgan. Yeah, he is 42, so like he just looks really good for 42. Because like I saw the guy, like that guy's got to be in his like early 30s, and no, he's I guess I don't know if it's just.
And he's a Halo fan. They did an interview with him, and he played like I think he said he played 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay,
and then he went back and played Halo Reach when he got the part.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like, of all the games you played that one. I wonder why.
I'm really interested to see where that goes, because as we know, in like the lore, he's like you said, he's kind of the antithesis to Halsey, sort of her I guess her opposite
nemesis,
in a way, and nemesis. That's the word I was looking for. And
public enemy number one,
right? And then he as we know him has his own Spartan program with the Spartan 3s. I guess we'll see where we go with that if we go anywhere with that in this season. I think we do from the little sneak peeks we've gotten, but I guess we will see.
Yeah, we'll see, but it's heavily hinted at, I would say, And it makes a perfect fit. Like the way the story has been sort of set up, this guy's come in to take over Halsey since she's, one, disappeared, but two, wanted for crimes. And so it just kind of naturally makes sense that this guy would come in and, I have my own big, bright ideas, and this is how the Spartan program should be. And out with the old, in with the new. So it's a story trope that just fits the mold very well. And, if they do it right, it could be very effective.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's clearly not the same as the lore, or I should say like the original lore, but it's definitely put together well so far, I think. I didn't really have any particular complaints with how this episode unfolds overall. I'm still very iffy on what we're seeing now with Soren. I like him. Bokeem Woodbine? Like him as an actor, he's good. Soren, the character in the lore, I enjoy. I'm not quite sure. I still like this part, this like B reel, or was it B story, whatever we're calling this?
B story, yeah, B plot.
B plot, yeah. I guess we'll see where this goes. We kind of get a sneak peek of where this might be headed, or it's definitely going somewhere. But this whole thing has just sort of been iffy for me, through last season and then this season as well.
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit of a bad taste in everybody's mouth from season 1, because when I was rewatching the show, I was completely uninterested in episode 7. And while I was watching it, I was like, how would I rewrite this to make it more engaging? And part of that rewrite was like, if we saw more of Soren's like crew, and he does more piratey things, and he does like a mission and something goes wrong. And that's kind of what this episode kind of sets up, I was thinking about. And so like, I think it is more or less effective, and it makes me a little bit more engaged into what Soren's trying to deal with. Like, he obviously has some sort of resentment or some sort of, interest and drawn towards Halsey. So that's going to push him to go on this mission. But I think because of the taste and everything that happened with the last season, it was still kind of, okay, yeah, this is the B plot. Like, I want more Chief and, where I'm actually invested in. So I'm at least, I think that this whole, this guy Felix and finding Halsey and whatever, we'll get to what happens in a little bit, but like, I think there's a move in the general right direction. And I think it just might take a little bit of some journeying to really get on board with, if they kind of keep it going on. But I do think that like what we see of Soren in this episode, I think generally is better than what we've seen in season 1. But it's not much, but it definitely has room for improvement. So I'm interested to see where it goes, and I just want it to be a little more exciting. But I was more interested as we got more of Soren's scenes, which I was a little surprised about while we were watching. But I'm happy about it, because that's what I want. I don't want there to be an element of the show that I'm just completely disinterested in.
Right.
But it will take a little bit for me to, and I'm sure other viewers to forget or just move on from what we've already known, because what we already know is not that interesting.
Right. And my issue with those kind of stories, particularly in sci-fi, is like the INI plot, the insurrection plot that we see in a lot of the books. I really do enjoy. Like there's a lot of good stuff in there. But then whenever you do like in a show, particularly when you kind of want to show the quote unquote regular people, or it tends to be kind of the down and out people that they show. That's a very common trope. It always feels a little bit weird to me, just because it's hard to realistically set up like a fictional world, like futuristic world, right? That feels believable. It's a lot easier to do if we're doing like the A plot with, you got the military, and the military is kind of the military. They do their thing. That culture and that interaction doesn't necessarily change a lot, but all that stuff that goes on in the background with with Soren and all that not necessarily Soren, but just all the other things, like we saw with that ringside, whatever that was. It always just feels a little bit hokey, I think. So
yeah, no, like the way they did Madrigal and not Vanek, but what's the name, Venture, and like the magic, like that whole thing was just completely botched and uninteresting.
Yeah, agreed.
And
agreed.
It just it was not great.
Yeah, this was a good expose or on Ackerson and his kind of his thought process.
Yeah, and his forcefulness, like you can like John tries to kind of get a little strong with him, but then Ackerson just retaliates in a very calm and calculated way. And yeah, I really like this scene. It might be my favorite of his this episode, just because like they're here in the office, they're alone, no one else can hear them, and this is where we start getting Ackerson's like, I don't really believe you, which a whole other plot hole that we could just say is that like Chief's helmet probably recorded everything, so I don't know if like he's just denying that and just like they're refusing to accept it or refusing to look at it, or if that's just a plot hole.
Well, is it that he doesn't believe him, or he's saying he doesn't believe him because he wants to push the narrative that he wants to push? He knows a lot more.
I think that's what it is, but it's just like
commercial.
I think it's just a matter of just trying to discredit Chief, right? And I think that helps him with his goals to replace Spartan 2s or at least introduce his Spartan 3s into the mix by discrediting Chief and talking about Cortana and how there's all these illegal things circulating him and all that. So it's but it just kind of irks me a little bit because I was like trying to figure it out. I'm just like, why doesn't Ackerson believe him? Like it just kind of, it didn't really hit me the first time I watched it. The second time I watched it, I was like, okay, he's just clearly not interested in knowing what Chief wants to say or do or anything, which is just kind of counterintuitive. But I mean, I guess he really does think that they're safe on Reach, because like it's interesting when Chief's like, they were practicing for something or whatever. They killed the comms relay, and he's like, for what? I'm like, I don't know. Never mind that we have a comms relay here on Reach. Like,
I'm in a commercial break.
Maybe we should. Yeah, I paused it.
Okay, I didn't know if you heard me. Yeah. I got 40 seconds. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where you never really know what Oni's thinking, and you sort of have to assume. And I guess it makes it easy in that way. You can sort of just say, well, did they know? Did they not know? Are they doing this because they have some sort of secret plan going on, or are they just being ignorant and cocky? You know, you never really know, I guess. So from that plot hole standpoint, it makes it, I guess, a little bit easier to brush off. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens as this continues on. I'm back.
All right. So now we have Soren and his wife, Lara?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'd like to...
Laera.
We saw the kid with the little Master Chief toy there. I'd be curious to know if... I know, like, maybe the Builds with Blocks guys, you know, the Colin and them, maybe they know, like, what toy that actually is. Because I presume that's an actual toy, right?
Yeah, probably. Like a real life toy. Like,
well, I mean, I imagine they didn't make one as a prop. I imagine they just bought one at the store.
Yeah.
So I'd just be curious, like, what is that? I bet you those guys know.
Which one it is? Yeah. No, that would be interesting.
Probably. I bet you it's an Infinite. It's got to be, right? We saw the grapple hook at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the beauty's wrong word, but that is something that's nice about the show, is that they can kind of pull from all time periods of the canon and just kind of make it its own thing. So it doesn't have to be like a toy that came out in the early 2000s. Like, it could just be the toys that we have now.
Well, right. No, yeah. In the lore, yeah. They did that in, I think it was at the Halo 5, like the commercials and the trailers or whatever, those live action trailers for Halo 5. I think they had something similar with the Master Chief toy.
Maybe so. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, I remember something about that, but yeah, that's the same thing where it's like in the lore, it's some sort of Master Chief toy because it's he's the savior of humanity, at least at that point in time in the lore. So this is a little bit interesting because it feels like we're sort of almost before the time where everyone all of humanity knows Master Chief as the savior, right? That kind of doesn't really come until after Halo 3. Then,
well, I wouldn't say, more so maybe after Halo 2, but like I feel like the Spartans aren't really that known as a protector against the Covenant until the Covenant are like full force. Because beforehand they were just kind of used to calm down the insurrection. And like I don't know how much like, oh, the Master Chief is saving you from the insurrection type of propaganda that there was, but I feel like definitely once the Covenant attacked and like all hope was like becoming lost and like morale is at an all-time low and there's like seemingly no hope to survive, it's like, oh well, actually we have the Spartans and the Master Chief, and like he definitely became, all of them became like a beacon of hope at that point.
Because
I would say that this is, in the terms of this timeline, that toy is probably the first wave of its kind, really, because over the last 6 months, as all this destruction in colonies have been glassed, I'm sure. Yeah, we even saw a little bit of that already, actually, right?
Yeah.
Or no, not yet.
Well,
it's coming up, the press conference or the debrief.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking of, because that was a story plot or from the original canon where
it's right here.
Right here, and I don't remember where. I think it's in Fall of Reach book. I think it's in the first book, but I don't recall exactly where. I know it pops up a few times, but it's some years before the end of the war, which is the original 3 games. You get like that part of the lore where the Spartans are sort of they're just put out as the heroes of humanity, and they're out there saving lives and everything. And here's where we get that same kind of thread, that plot thread. But it feels like this is the first time we're seeing it. So, maybe in this timeline we've already seen that in the past, but they just have never presented it to us, I suppose. But
there is in the first episode of the last of season 1. Remember, Miranda wanted Quan to say, the UNSC saved me, the Spartans are here to help, and the Covenant is a threat that exists, and we shouldn't believe propaganda and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So like I think this is a similar protocol that they're doing that Miranda was trying to get in on, and now Perez, and maybe it looked better because she was on the planet and she survived, and maybe that's kind of why they wanted to do this for their press conference as opposed to using the Spartans. But to kind of cut myself off, this is our great scene with the other Spartans that we were talking about earlier, where we get to see, this is Fire Team Cobalt,
right,
led by Kareem, I believe his name, and this actor here that's on screen. And we kind of get this locker talk, badass, I'm a Spartan, you're a Spartan sort of banter back and forth.
Yeah, I got a lot of, is it Fireteam Crimson vibes from Spartan Ops, Halo 4?
Yes, very much so.
I think it's Crimson, yeah. I got, especially him right there. His voice even sounds very similar to, I don't recall what the Spartan's name was in that game, but they have a similar voice. But this is the part where I thought it was weird, because like these are the guys with the chips, right? And then
they have their pellets in,
and they feel like
they seem to be.
Yeah, they seem very cocky and almost more emotional than what is it? What are they? A Silver Team.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like you can't one of my favorite moments from the first season is when Kai talks to Vanek, and I think it was episode 5, and she's like, "Do you ever wonder why we fight the Covenant?" And Vanek's like, "No." And he goes, "Do you ever wonder why you don't wonder why?" And he says something like, I do wonder if that grease soaked into your brain because you're speaking some stupid ass shit or something. And it's like, okay, that's the type of expression that like a emotional suppressed Spartan would exhibit.
Right.
And And yeah, like we kind of got a little bit more emotive out of Fire Team Cobalt there, but I don't know. It's still kind of still felt a little bit more stiff. But yeah, it's a little bit more blurred, I would say, to your point.
Yeah, and I just thought that whole plot thread from last season was unnecessary. I know what they were trying to do with that, but he can be He can be a little bit emotional and get angry, like right now. But when he's on the field in the armor, they showed him in that first scene where he's very stoic and he's on the mission and he doesn't need that pellet to control his emotions. He just controls his emotions because he's there to complete the mission. And so, like, I guess, we've mentioned it a couple of times in this episode, so I suppose maybe it's not totally done with, or maybe they're just mentioning it just to kind of tie up that part of the story. But I feel like it's going to still end up going somewhere this season, and I don't know that it needs to.
Yeah, maybe they just kind of wanted to get it out of the way that, hey, they've removed their pellets and this is where they are now, just because.
Yeah, that's
prior to this episode, 2 of them had their pellets still in, so maybe it's just a kind of trying to just clean up some loose ends, just to kind of get over it and kind of move on.
Yeah. If they never mention the pellets again, I will be 100% happy.
Yeah. Now, something that I wanted to mention, just kind of staying on the Spartans, is that I wonder if they're like the showrunners and writers, if they're introducing more Spartan 2s to effectively kill them off.
Yep, I bet you they are.
Do you think that's kind of a...
Those guys are dead by the end of the season. You're probably right. I can almost guarantee.
Well, I honestly, Cobalt Team might be dead by the end of season, or by episode 3, if they're not dead by episode 2.
You're right. They very well might be. What is, like, I guess... Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I feel like the writing kind of needs a reason to keep Silver Team on Reach, so then they can fight on Reach when the Covenant, attack it in episode 3, I presume, because it's Visegrad. But yeah, I'm just kind of like thinking, like, when you look at that Spartan board that I tried to decipher as much as I could, and even on Reddit, people are piecing it together, which is pretty cool. It shows you, about 32 or so Spartans, and they're all being deployed, or they're all like in transit or whatever, but like Silver Team's the one that are like standby and staying here. So like you have all these other Spartan factions that are out on other worlds, other colonies, and then maybe they're captured or maybe they're killed and all that. But then now you have Silver Team, they're here to fight on the home front. And then it also, I think, gives a little bit more weight for when the Spartan 3s arrive, because it's like, hey, all the Spartan 2s are dying off.
Yeah.
Like, maybe even Ackerson's sending them on suicide missions thinking and knowing that they would die.
Ooh, that is actually, I
didn't think of that until just now.
I hadn't thought about that either, but that would totally fit with him, and that would definitely paint him as the quasi-villain of the story.
That actually would explain why, when in that whole scene that we just talked over, of him of Master Chief talking to Ackerson about why didn't you warn Cobalt, or at least give him a warning, like his justification for not doing that would be to hope that they get ambushed and effectively killed.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. Not necessarily
thinking that he thought that like Silver Team would do that on Sanctuary, but now that he knows what the Covenant might be thinking, it's so weird.
He's holding them back though. Like they kind of mentioned that though, right? Their whole Silver Team's just sort of hanging out in Reach, and yeah, like they are the heroes. They are the face of the Spartans, so they can't really kill them, but he can get rid of the rest of the Spartans to promote his Spartan 3s. That would make a lot of sense. That would fit in for the most part with the lore, at least broadly speaking. Obviously not.
Yeah,
it's not exactly how it went down. Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. I would not be surprised at all if we see that.
So I want to talk about this scene, even though it's ending right now with his son Kes. Or are we at commercial, or is it still going?
No, we're still going.
Okay. So Kes talks about monsters, and we get a little bit of that hint at the end of the episode. But before we get to that, Soren just kind of dismisses it and is like, "You're too young to think about monsters, or you're too old to think and still believe in monsters. Do you get the sense that Soren is talking about the same thing than what Kwan is alluding to?
Oh, I don't know. From last season?
No, at the end of this episode, I guess we can get to it when we get there. But like, I kind of just think that it's just an odd scene because like it's obviously talking about something or like it's using a word to kind of hide what it is, which I think the word is Forerunner or like the Monitor as this monster. But like, I don't know, it was just a weird scene that I didn't really like, and it requires you to know what happens at the very end of the episode to just get the context of that one scene. But also Soren's just like talking to his son about, hey, I'm going to go on this mission. And he's like, I thought you said you didn't go on this mission. And by the way, everyone thinks you're a bad man. And there's these monsters here. Like, oh, well, you don't believe in monsters. I don't know. I just didn't really.
Yeah. We're definitely hinting. Yeah, we're definitely hinting at something. And I don't know exactly what yet. They haven't given us enough to know. I mean, the monster could be a lot of things. It could be the Covenant, but that doesn't seem like that would make sense because they know the Covenant. It could be something Forerunner. It could be the Flood, but probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
We don't really know. This was weird. Okay, so maybe this makes more sense to you here. So now we see Parangoski, and she's not in Oni anymore.
So when she turned around, I literally was like, holy shit, I forgot about Parangoski. Like, yeah. I completely just was like, oh yeah, we're just watching what we're watching. But yeah, like, I don't know. Are you saying, do you think she might be lying to Chief to try to get more information?
I don't know. I mean, I guess
because to me it makes sense. Like she says it like someone had to take the hit for Halsey since Halsey didn't get captured. Like, I feel like that's very believable. I mean, her hair is down. It's not in the usual kind of up, high and tight type of a military leader type of a look. It's a little more casual, a little more kind of frayed. And she's in civilian clothes, which could just be a disguise. So I don't know, but I believe her on face value. I think she was effectively sacked. And she's just out in the world, I guess, but she still wants to help. But the thing I find most interesting about this scene is that she seems to just be 100% on Chief's side. Like at the very end, she's like, "You're right here. Press this button, and I'll find you." And then she goes away or turns around, and he says, "What are you going to do for me?" And she says, "I'm going to believe you." It's like, well, you just spent the whole season 1 not believing Chief at all and like questioning Halsey, questioning Chief, and he was acting erratically and all this kind of stuff. But then now it's been 6 months and the Covenant are here. Like, I almost am curious what has happened from her point of view in those 6 months to kind of see a little bit more why she believes in him.
Yeah.
Or why she thinks Chief is now an ally when pretty much every aspect of every scene she was in season 1, she was not an ally really with Chief, or rather she questioned Chief's state of mind and all that kind of stuff. So I find that to be the most interesting thing about that particular scene. But I love Parangoski. I think she's one of the best casted actresses and actors in this show, and really loved what she did in season 1. And I kind of like how she's kind of this underground Oni operative now. But I mean, it also just could be more Oni trickery.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's trickery. I think you're right that she's legit been deposed basically because Ackerson's effectively taken that role. So presumably, what I think is going to happen is we have Ackerson now in sort of the lead role. I don't know if is he technically the Oni. Head of Oni, or I don't think he is. I don't recall. But either way, he's sort of the de facto.
I think he's the head of Section 3.
Okay, so
which is actually kind of weird because that's what Parangoski was. So it's almost like he now has Parangoski's and Halsey's job.
I'm back.
But when in his introduction with Keyes, the way it's described is that he's now the head of the Spartan program, which would be a subsection of Section 3.
Did you catch that I'm back?
Oh no,
I'm on the ship now.
Yeah, they're on the ship, kind of talking. Yep. Felix is telling his story, how he was running the front loader.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting, like if Parangoski isn't there, then it's like, yeah, does Ackerson now take the role of both of them, or is there a different, just unnamed character that is now head of Section 3 that's technically Ackerson's boss?
Yeah, I think for the sake of the story, Ackerson's kind of the face of Oni. I assume this is kind of predicting what we're going to see the rest of the season, but like we kind of talked about with him sort of maybe killing off a lot of the Spartan 2s and bringing in his Spartan 3s, this is going to end with Ackerson's to be honest, I'm guessing Ackerson will be dead by the end of this season, or at least gone, and then we have Parangoski sort of in the shadows, and maybe she rises back, like she sort of comes back to refill that role. I don't know, but like I feel like she's been positioned to be on Chief's side and kind of come back at the end, and Ackerson's been positioned to fail at the end here. It's very early on, so it's a little bit hard to say, but that's my guess, at least, is that kind of what we've been saying about him being the Spartan 2 enemy of UNSC, of Oni, is going to come to fruition here, and Parangoski is going to end up being the protagonist this time, and then refill her original role from season 1. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, it's definitely plausible. Would kind of
maybe
hope
I'm thinking too far into this.
I mean, maybe not necessarily too far, but just I feel I'd feel maybe a little disappointed if Ackerson's out this season, but that just might be because he just could be the seasonal bad guy. It could just be as simple as that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess on one hand, at least in the lore, Ackerson stays around for quite a while. I guess the only issue is from the perspective of the TV show, depending on where we end up here at the end of this season. Let's say if we do end up on Alpha Halo, or in going in that direction, sort of how I think a lot of people are predicting, then Ackerson doesn't exactly have a role going forward, at least not for the the next season or so. So yeah, I guess I'll be curious to see where that ends up going. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't go away completely, and maybe it becomes a Parangoski and him butt heads or something. But
yeah, I just think it's a little too soon for me to really think about what I want out of Ackerson by the end of the season. I definitely want Parangoski to still be doing things. I kind of like the idea of her being kind of on her own, being a little rogue. I think I mentioned this on one of the other episodes before Halo TV, like on Halo TV Plus, but one of the pre-episodes of like Parangoski doing a little bit of what she did at the end of Halo 5, where her Black Box and Lord Hood ran away to Rossbach's world, this like safe house on this isolated planet, to kind of live out the Guardian invasion and the Guardian event. And it seems that, you could maybe take that element in this storyline with her now a little bit more detached and removed from from Oni and the UNSC. So I would be okay with kind of doing that, or maybe Parangoski gets a little bit more on the ground with Halsey maybe, or the Spartans or whomever, and kind of having this back channels. I think it just opens up a few possibilities that I'm interested in exploring, but I don't really know which way I would prefer yet. But I like it. I think it's interesting, and it mixes things up. It puts Parangoski in a different pair of shoes than what we saw in season 1, and kind of any way to kind of do that, I kind of welcome, because it mixes it up, the dynamic a little bit. It changes the power struggles and who has power where. So from a story standpoint, I think it's good. Yeah. So when did you start not believing Felix, or did you not really, or did you believe him up until basically this moment?
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't really catch on. I was sort of just watching it casually, so I wasn't really focused on waiting for all the twists and trying to predict it. So I wasn't really in that kind of a mental space. So I didn't really catch on until maybe started to get a feeling. I got a feeling something's happening right here. You didn't quite get that Felix is necessarily involved yet, but
yeah. Well, I mean, right here, yeah. So when they were like crossing the long bridge, and he was asking all the questions of like, oh, you used to know Halsey. Oh, she kidnapped children and all this kind of stuff. I was like, okay, dude, what's your story? Like right there, I knew something was up. But I thought that maybe Halsey and maybe she still could be behind this, but at least in that moment, I was like, maybe Halsey is so far removed and isolated and needs help. She planned this whole kidnapping of Soren, and hired this guy Felix to kind of carry it all out. So that's what I initially thought. And then when that scene happened and he's like, you're under arrest, I'm like, okay, well then maybe not. Maybe he's just an Oni agent that was undercover or something. But
yeah. Now, did they say he was Oni? I didn't catch what he...
No, they didn't say specifically, but just he has some sort of law enforcement authority to kind of say that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay.
He's an agent of some kind.
Yeah, he's an agent of some kind. And it's like, well, what other agent would he be if it's not like the military police or Oni or something like that? So like...
Right.
Because what other jurisdiction would like go across galaxies and planets and stuff is kind of my thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of the what you were saying about simplifying some of the story elements and merging characters together into a single person just for simplicity's sake. I think that's kind of the same thing where Oni's the kind of the big bad-ish kind of agency, and adding more different agencies into the mix is just muddling the story.
Yeah, Oni and the UNSC, I mean, even in core canon, is like the largest military force the humans have across the galaxy. So it just kind of makes sense to just keep this insurmountable force to, I don't know, enforce their rulings and decrees and all that stuff, how they see fit to try to protect humanity. So.
Mm-hmm. So moving forward a bit to the story or the scene we're in now. So what? Maybe you caught on better on exactly what's going on here. I know he's got some sort of like, it's obviously not Cortana, but he's trying to.
I feel like the way I interpret this is that Master Chief doesn't have anyone to talk to really about his feelings. Like basically, he needs a therapist. Like and like he doesn't want to talk about Cortana with the other Spartans. He doesn't have Halsey. I mean, Miranda's not even in this episode, which raises a question. But like, I don't think him and Miranda were even all that close. It seems that his relationship with Keyes is a little bit more distant than what it was, and so I feel like this is a way for him to interact with something with another AI type of interaction that looks like Cortana, and then talk to Cortana. And then because this, prostitution-like service is supposed to mimic whomever, she throws in the sweeties and the niceties and all that,
right.
Which, Chief may or may not be wanting. I kind of got the sense that he didn't really need all that extra stuff, because he didn't really want her to talk anyway. He just kind of wanted a visual that was familiar and wanted to just talk about things that are on his mind. So I think he was just kind of looking for a therapist type of a person, is kind of how I interpreted that scene.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm curious where that ends up going with Cortana, because I'm not really sure I really don't know where that part of the story is going, or have really any ideas.
Well, I feel like she has to come back. Like, I feel like...
Well, yeah, for sure. She has to come back. Agreed. But I just don't quite know where we're going with that story. Like, I know they kind of talked about it at the opening scene where they had to, sever connection with her and him and all that. But they didn't really explain it all. Like, where is she? Right?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't get explained unless I missed something. Now, where is this? Is that on a Halo?
No, that's not on a Halo. I think that's just on some planet that the Covenant are at.
Okay. I just saw, it looked like a Halo-ish curve in the background there.
It looked like a planet to me.
Maybe it was a planet.
But I feel like the Covenant is in search of the Halo. The Covenant don't know where it is either. So, and I feel like the reason they're glassing these planets is that they're trying to find Reach, really they're trying to find the Master Chief and the artifact, which I'm assuming is on Reach. And so they're basically planet hopping to find that. That's kind of how I interpreted that. So I think that shot of that elite is at some sort of Covenant home base planet, and they're preparing for an invasion to go somewhere else. Because they weren't glassing that planet, so I don't think it was them just glassing another one and moving on to the next. I think they are like regrouping, refueling, doing whatever, and getting ready for the next. And plus, it's at the end of the episode, so it's like they're getting ready for the next big engagement.
Commercial.
Well, that should be the end of the episode.
I think that's just about the end. I think we've just got the ending credits here.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. So
that's how I interpreted that Covenant shot of them coming through the clouds. So now what I wanted to touch on just at the end of this episode, since we were talking over it, is again this whole monster sort of thing. So the last little stinger that we got our good sort of hero shots. We see some of our characters where they are at the end of the episode, and we hear this voiceover from who we learn is Quan, which I was trying to I forgot about Quan, so I was trying to guess who it was. And like, who is talking, because it doesn't sound like McKee, but maybe it's McKee. And I completely forgot about Miranda as well until at the end of the episode when I saw her name, Olivia Gray, I think.
Oh, in the credits?
Yeah, in the end credits here. I was like, oh yeah, Miranda wasn't even in the episode. But we learned that it's Quan, and so she somehow escaped Magical before it was glassed. And she's talking about this monster, and I didn't write down what she says, which I probably will do for the analysis episode. But she says things along the lines of like, there's this monster out there, it knows everything, it doesn't want you to know, but it always sees you, and things like that. And it's talking really cryptic on how this monster's been around for the beginning of time and things like that. And I have a feeling to kind of help kind of validate her existence in the story and without completely retconning what happened in season 1. I'm assuming she found the well where that portal is. Maybe she went through the portal. Maybe she saw the monitor come out of the portal and talked with the monitor and learned what who the Forerunners are or something, or got some sort of thing or inkling about them. Because, I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense for me right now, only watching one episode. And I think it's very plausible, because I agree. I don't really think she means the Covenant, because the Covenant we already know about. Like, I don't know. It just fits better if it was the Forerunners into whoever this monster entity is, unless it's something completely different. But that makes the most sense to me.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. It's a little weird, because I think you're right. I think it's probably the Forerunners, although the word monster in the Halo universe doesn't very easily apply necessarily to the Forerunners. It more easily applies to the Covenant or the Flood. So I guess we'll see whether or not they really do just mean the Forerunners, and that it's just foreshadowing kind of what we have in the core canon, in that like there's Forerunner artifacts. The Covenant are in search of those artifacts. Humanity just so happens to be on a lot of those planets, and then ends up getting glassed in the meantime. And then Reach basically becomes the culmination of all that, where that's sort of where the Covenant end up to look for. Like you said, they're looking for the Halo, and then humanity sort of stumbles upon the somewhat unknowingly, although that bit of the lore is been retconned a few times, but sort of unknowingly stumbles upon the coordinates to the Halo. They don't really know what they found, but it all ends up on Reach, and then from Reach it ends up going to Alpha Halo. So
yeah,
you're probably right. It probably is just the Forerunners, but of course we know where that leads to, right? So that does lead to the Flood. So I guess we'll see where that goes.
Ooh, actually, it could be really interesting if she meets a Gravemind and she talks to a Flood. That would be really
I'm looking forward to it, because the Flood have to show up at some point, assuming the series continues on. But I imagine we don't see them until season 3, maybe.
Yeah, I would be a little surprised if they introduced them
Yeah, I think. Well, one alien race at a time. We introduced
Yeah,
the Covenant
exactly.
last season. We introduced the Forerunners this season, and introduced the Flood next season. That would make. I mean, that would honestly make sense. And I guess we kind of got a preview of the Forerunners in season 1 as well, right? So with the artifact, and then I think we get a monitor briefly, right?
Yeah, and very briefly.
Yeah, so I presume, yeah. I mean, I think kind of what you and I think it was you and David, or maybe you and I don't remember which episode it was of this show where you guys kind of talked, your predictions of the season based on. Oh, it was you and Aaron about the with the season or the episode names. Yeah, it definitely seems like I think the community, particularly the core fan base, kind of has a good idea of where this is going. Some of the details are a bit up in the air, but without spoiling, I'm not really spoiling it because I don't know, but at the same time, I'm pretty confident. Reach is going to fall. That kind of has to happen, right?
Oh yeah,
and yeah, and I assume we end up at a Halo at the end of the season, or at least kind of the opening scene of Halo CE / the last scene of Halo Reach. We end up with some sort of recreation of that. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a tease than us actually being on it. I think it's going to be...
No, I don't think we're going to be on Halo this season. There's no way. You only have, is it 9 episodes
it's
again?
It's 8 episodes.
8. Oh, geez. Okay, 8 episodes.
I mean, the last episode is called Halo, though, so I mean...
And the last mission of Halo Reach is called Halo, and the first mission of Halo CE is called Halo. It can't not happen at this point, right?
Is it really called Halo? The end of Halo Reach?
So the last mission. Well, I think I don't know if it's the last mission or if it's the technically it's the cutscene or whatever is technically a mission, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe
it is. I mean, let me double check just so that I don't say something wrong, but I am pretty positive.
I think the last mission of Halo 3, I think, is called Halo.
Of Halo 3? We were not a Halo then.
We blow up the Halo at the Ark.
Oh, you might maybe yet another Halo.
But the second mission of CE is Halo. That's the iconic one.
Right.
You have the Covenant, then you have Cortana, then I think you have Halo. I think Halo's the last mission in Halo 3.
Oh, so it's technically Lone Wolf is the last mission of the campaign. I swear something was called Halo at the end of that. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Because the last mission of Halo Reach is the Pillar of Autumn, right?
Well, right. Well, there's Pillar of Autumn, and then Lone Wolf is the one. But I swear, that ending cutscene was called Halo or something, or maybe I might be thinking of. You might be right.
I think you're thinking of Halo 3. So
yeah, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. But
you
either way,
might be wrong, Ian. All right.
Well, I'm right. I'm wrong in the name. I'm right. I will put money. I will put money down on what I think the last episode will end with. But that's
it's a talk for another time.
We'll see when we get there.
All right. Well, overall thoughts and opinions of the episode. I thought it was a great first episode. I mean, it didn't blow me away, but I think it definitely hit the ball, so to speak, from a baseball point of view, and it ran around a base or two. And it's still in the game.
It's a good setup. Good introduction of characters. I think I feel more grounded overall. Like the story, that it felt a little bit weird. The whole first season felt weird. We did get the sneak peeks of a little bit of kind of like the McKee and Quan and all that, but I think the core story felt better and felt more Halo. I definitely got more of a Halo-y vibe, not just from the music, but just the whole, just kind of how it was presented. And I like the characters. I like where we're going with this. Like you said, neither of us have actually seen the second episode, which would probably give us more insight onto what we're saying. But I think, for sure, I'm excited for this season. I was I was excited for season 1 before it came out, and then as it came out, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I like parts of this, but it's like, it's okay. This, I'm so far at least, I'm liking where we're going.
Well, great. Is there anything that you're excited to check out in the next episode, or like something that you want to learn more about going forward?
Yeah, well, kind of like we talked about. I see where I think what's the next episode's title?
It's called Sword.
Sword. Okay, so we're gonna see Halsey presumably. I assume that means sword base.
That's the leading theory.
Yeah, I don't. It kind of has to, right? If we're setting up the monster, if we're setting up the monsters, the Forerunners, and Reach is like the end of battle. Sword base, as we know, as the fans know, is kind of that's where Halsey has one of her offices, and Oni has a facility there. It's underground. That's basically, I don't know if it's built around it, but it's on top of a crash Forerunner ship, I believe. And that's kind of where I think they get at least some of the information for where Alpha Halo is. At least they get the coordinates. So I'm imagining that's what they're setting up. So we're going to see Halsey, we're going to see Sword Base, and kind of set up that antithesis to Ackerson and the Spartan. You see kind of that her side, because she's going to, I imagine if Ackerson is the Spartan 3 guy and the anti-Spartan 2 guy, then Halsey's going to inevitably be the pro. Obviously she's the pro Spartan 2 person, but she's gonna sort of be the bad guy on the good guys team, I think, this season. So that's where I expect us to go.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess after that, I assume we're gonna see the Covenant on Reach here before too long. And we only have 8 episodes, and I think by episode 3, I'd imagine we're gonna see him on Reach, at least the start of that, right?
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think I will close it out there. We're sitting at a good hour and 20 for this episode, so that was a nice first episode. Thank you, Ian, for joining us, and thank you, listeners, for joining us. If you're interested, Paramount Plus produces a Halo after show segment called Halo the Series Declassified that accompanies each episode of the TV show. This week for Sanctuary, Sidney Goodman interviews Pablo Schreiber and talks about going behind the scenes of the Sanctuary sort of opening battle, and looks a little bit about the props. And we also meet James Ackerson, Joseph Gordon. So you can check that out. It's about 20 minutes, and they're pretty interesting. And yeah, that's about it. Halo the Series premieres exclusively on Paramount Plus every Thursday. Season 1 was every Thursday morning at midnight Pacific time. I don't know if that's the case for season 2. Episode 2 is already up. If you haven't watched it, now is a perfect time to go watch it now. I'm going to be watching it very soon after we're done recording this, and then we're going to release those very early in the week. But then episode 3 will release this coming Thursday, which is the 15th of February. So you can check out episode 3 then. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, you can find every episode of all of our shows that Evolve produces on our website, evolvedhalo.com. Once again, another shout out to all of our patrons. Thank you guys so much for supporting Evolved. Ian, thank you for joining us and for the episode. I'm glad I was able to get you on here. Yeah,
I'm thrilled to be on here. Like I said, I'm enjoying doing this. So if we can try to pop on another episode of this season, if we can make the schedule work out, for sure.
Oh, definitely. We'll see what we can muster together. Finally, the listeners, if you like the show, you can rate us, leave us a review. I greatly appreciate all the feedback that we receive from our listeners to improve the quality of the show. You can also email us at podcastevolved@gmail.com, and we also have a Google phone number if you want to leave a voicemail. Google phone is 205-EVOLVED. That's 205-386-5833. And with that, I've been your host, Oran, and until next time, evolve!